Okay. Hey, everybody. Right then, as we're waiting for people to come online, let's just quickly um, try and avoid the buzzy noise that comes from my phone, which is tethering. Um, let's just go to my livey videos. How do we do this? There it is. Terry on Saturday? What's going on there? Okay. Well, so far, nothing. Okay. Let's get back to me. All right. Anyway, uh, we currently have no viewers, so I shall not begin. Ugh, God, what's going on here with that one, that one. Two people. Hello, two people. How are you doing? Whoever you are, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to talk about Dune Part Two because I've been super stoked to watch it, and if you want to ask me any questions, it's in the chat there. The live chat seems to be working. Um, and It's a mild spoiler, so I'll talk about things that happen in the film, but I'm not going to give the ending away. I'm not going to give away major plot points. Um, but I do want to talk about it because I can't remember the last time I've done some kind of film review. I remember I once did a film review for Rogue One because I had an advanced screening, and that got like 18,000 views, which was crazy. And I put things all over it. Spoiler review, careful, spoiler review. And I had loads of people in chat going, "You spoiled it for me." I'm like, "Did you not read the spoiler review bit?" Anyway, that was fun. If you are watching and you can hear me, and I'm not just doing, let me know that you can hear me. I'm just going to see if I can bring up my own videos on here just so I can see if I am live, kind of thing. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. Well, it doesn't seem to be. Okay. Well, if it works, it works. Anyway, regardless, I shall talk to you. It's nice to see you. I'm assuming one of the viewers might actually be myself, so I may be talking to one person. But hey, it's better than nobody. Okay, so let's quickly go back to Dune 1. All okay sound wise. I knew it'd be you. You're very reliable. You're like a German, no, not a German Shepherd. One of those other dogs. The ones with the barrels, right? St. Bernard. St. Bernard, if you're an American. Yeah, so let's go back to Dune 1. Um, I was very about Dune 1 before I watched it because I saw the David Lynch one, which looks stunning but makes no sense. Uh, Disclaimer, someone's just joined us watching. Hello. Um, a disclaimer, I've never read the Dune books. Um, they are, to me, like The Lord of the Rings. They're very interminable and big, and I don't think I could dedicate that much time and stuff to them. Who's talking to me? Stop it. Um, yeah, going into Dune 1, the one by the recent one, Denis Villeneuve. By the way, most YouTubers can't pronounce Villeneuve. It's French. It's Ville as in Ville for village, Neuve as in sort of new, so new village. Villeneuve rhymes with wheel, rhymes with verve. Villeneuve. That's all you have to say. Only Americans are like Villeneuve, Villeneuve. Anyway, going into the first Dune film, I was like, "Oh, is this going to be like too much for me?" And it wasn't. It was great fun. It drew me in, and because it was quite long paced, a long running time, it actually gave me a lot to think about. Gave me time to digest all the world building and the character setups and stuff, which I thought was great. And it was pretty dynamic. It was pretty epic. And then it stopped. I was like, "Oh no, I want to see the second part." So now we've been given the second part. And the first thing I knew about the second part was every film reviewer I watch, from the sensible ones like Dan Murrell, um, and John Campion to the more, shall we say, enthusiastic ones like Critical Drinker, Nerdrotic, Heels versus Babyface, Jeremy Jahns, those kind of guys. Everyone's saying it's fantastic. It's a masterpiece. It's the new Star Wars. It's the new Empire Strikes Back. It's an epic. Um, so I was super stoked to go in and watch it. Now, um, like I say, I haven't read the books, so people I've been talking to about the film are quite let down by the changes from the books, etc. There's always going to be adaptation, and obviously, if you're adapting someone's well beloved book from a few decades ago, um, any deviation or anything you do differently is going to get frowned upon, you know. So, yeah, a bit of a poison chalice adapting someone else's intellectual property. But with that said, I went into it super excited to expect the best thing since sliced bread, or the best thing since A New Hope, because I'm a lover of Star Wars more than The Empire Strikes Back. I know, blasphemy. But let's get down to what I thought of it. If people will stop messaging me on Instagram. Hello, hello. Yeah, so um, did I enjoy it? Yes, very much so. Is it an epic? Yes, very much so. Is it well acted? Yes, very much so. Did it keep your attention for 2 hours 45 minutes or whatever? Yes, very much so. For the most part, is it the best thing since sliced bread? Is it the next Empire Strikes Back? Is it the next Godfather Part 2? Is it the next just Star Wars? No. And I've noticed that there are a couple of reviewers on YouTube who are saying it's less than perfection, and they're getting ripped to shreds in the comments section. And I'm not doing this to stand out differently. I usually go ahead. I usually like films that people hate, in fact. And this film, I did not hate in the slightest. I enjoyed it. I've seen it once, and I'm going to be seeing it again very soon, probably the next couple of days. And I'll happily watch it a number of times. But it's not the best thing since sliced bread, and I'll tell you for why. Okay, so with a film this long, there's a lot to pack in. Even though it's nearly 3 hours long, there's still a lot to pack in, and I'm told there are a lot of changes from the original book, which is fine. Having not read, oh, for goodness sake, stop it. Having not read the books, I'm quite glad I haven't, because that way I get to judge the film on screen, on its merits, as it is there and then. I know the basic story about the rise of Paul Atreides, Timothy Chalamet, going from reluctant hero to sort of fundamentalist rebel. Almost he becomes harder and more focused and potentially more cruel and stuff. But it's great. But there's a couple of little bits in the film that I felt may have been edited out. Now this is a mild spoiler. At one point in the film, Paul is asked to go off on a kind of vision quest to see if he can survive on his own in the desert. And he's warned about, all these things, to be wary of, and we'll see you when you get back and stuff. But that goes nowhere. He starts walking off, and the next minute, he's hanging out with Zendaya and chatting to her, and we were expecting a scene, like a good 10 minutes of him fighting against the elements and facing up against all the things that they said were waiting for him out there, and it just didn't happen, and that was a bit odd. And some of the battles, the precursor to them is a big expansive shot of hundreds of thousands of troopers and tanks and all this kind of stuff, and then they cut to a little bit of a battle and kind of focus on a little bit of it, but you don't get the big huge Lord of the Rings style epic ding dongs that you thought would come. But these aren't terrible things. These aren't like, oh, you ruined it for me. These actually, it's a great film. Um, and it's the same with, again, going back to Star Wars, etc. There are things I love about Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, but there's things I don't think were too great about Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. But it doesn't detract from my appreciation of them. Um, let's quickly look at the characters on this poster here. You've got Rebecca Ferguson as Jessica, who's basically Timothée Chalamet mother, and she goes much like her son. She goes from sort of worried outsider to, as you can see in this picture, she becomes the Reverend Mother, and she becomes quite sinister and quite manipulative, and that's a great character arc. Um, Obviously, you can see Josh Brolin there. I was convinced that Josh Brolin died in the first film or left for dead or something, but he's back and he's great. Florence Pugh doesn't get to do a great deal, but she's very good. I like Florence Pugh. There's something strange about Florence Pugh. Is she British? I can't remember. With a name like Pugh, you'd think she'd be Welsh. Anyway, Javier Bardem, his character Stilgar is, at the end of the first Dune and the first half of this film, he's quite suspicious of Paul and his mother, and they're like, "Well, you're outsiders. We shouldn't really, be helping you." But quickly becomes Paul's biggest cheerleader and supporter, and he's a religious what's the word? A religious not manically religious, but he's a kind of he's a convert to Paul being the chosen one kind of thing. And if this does sound a bit like Star Wars, then Star Wars was heavily influenced by Dune. George Lucas was, at least. So Javier Bardem, last time I saw him was in Pirates of the Caribbean as Salazar, savvy, and he always puts on a good performance. Who else we got? Zendaya. Her role in this film is obviously the love interest for Paul, but also she stands against Stilgar's religious enthusiasm and says this is all nonsense. So trying to balance that kind of thing out, and she's worried that she's losing Paul to his his mission to fight for the Fremen and destroy the Harkonnens who wiped out his entire family and house, the Atreides. Poor Austin Butler, old baldy bonce. It's good that he's kind of shaken off the Elvis thing, because he was great as Elvis, fair play, and as Fade Routher, the role that was played by Sting in the David Lynch version of Dune, he is a bit of a nut job, very violent and very scary. Very force to be reckoned with, so that's good. I just checking up the viewers. There are no viewers now, which I understand, but I'll leave this up for other people to watch. So if you are watching on the replay, hello. Anyway, so Paul, obviously, if you've seen the original 80s Dune film, you know that Paul Atreides and Fade get into a knife fight, and that is a cracking sequence, it's got to be said. Then you've got Dave Bautista as the Beast Raban, and he's the nephew of Baron Harkonnen, obviously played by Stellan Skarsgård there in his fat suit. And Raban doesn't get to do as much, I think. Oh, you're still here. That's good. One person still here. Good. Again, he's a bit of a one-note bad guy. He's very shouty, very violent, but as a guy who's a bit of a mountain, he does what he's supposed to do. That's what he's hired to do, right? Cinematography, pretty stunning. Again, in a film that's 2 hours and 40 odd minutes long, the cinematography, at some point you start going, well, how many times can they show us a sunset over some sand? Because that's, the whole film's set on Arrakis, so there is going to be a lot of sand, a lot of sparkly spice in the sand, and a lot of sunsets and a lot of sunrises, which is not a terrible thing. But I will say in the first film, it felt a bit more dynamic because we saw a bit of Caladan, which is Paul Atreides' homeworld, before they all got wiped out. And this one is set almost entirely on Arrakis, so feels a little bit one note in terms of color palette. So you've got the Fremen who Paul and his mother join. They're all dressed in these still suits, with all the tubes and stuff on, the tubes around the nose and all that. But in the Dune 1985, I think it was, movie, the still suits are black. But in this film, the still suits are sand-coloured, which is just a choice, right? But the Harkonnens, the bad guy, the Harkonnen army, are all also dressed in white. But when they're covered in sand, everyone looks almost the same colour. So when you've got hundreds of people diving onto each other and fighting, it's a little bit tricky to work out, who's who. It's not impossible, but it is a little bit kind of, if only there was a way of distinguishing them apart a little bit more. This is why football teams have different colour shirts. But again, not a big detraction. The one thing I thought, I think the film could have been a little shorter, but I'm all for dragging out scenes of beauty, breathing space in between scenes, and I think that's what the first film did really well, because putting space between things gives the audience time to catch their breath and have a think about, oh, so this is what's happening, and oh, this is what's going to happen. It gives you time to process everything that comes in. But with this film, it does feel a little bit one note in places, because you kind of, there's an action set piece, and all the action set pieces are amazing, especially the one when Paul and Chani, Zendaya, they basically take on the Harkonnens outdoors when the Harkonnens drop a sand mining harvesting machine, and they've got bombs and guns and stuff, and it's really exciting. But there's an action scene. There's a kind of obviously a scene that moves forward Paul's story of being the chosen one and being the Kwisatz Haderach, or the Muad'Dib. And then there's another action scene, and there's a bit with Jessica, for example, and the Bene Gesserit, and her own machinations moving forward into sort of shaping the way things are coming together. There is a big change sort of 3/4 of the way through. Obviously, when we get to the Harkonnens world, which I can't remember the name of the place, but there's an arena scene where we're introduced to Fade, played by Austin Butler. And because apparently, the thing is, it's very stylistic. It's like H.R. Gigerland, and everything is basically shot in black and white. And I wondered if that was just a stylistic thing, but from what I've been told, the Harkonnens planet has a black sun, which is why everyone's so pasty white, because there's zero sun tanning going on, which makes you wonder how they survive on Arrakis, because it ain't comfortable to people like that. Obviously, you'd burn to a crisp. But the arena scene where Fade is introduced shows how good of a fighter he is, etc. And it's all in black and white, and it looks starkly different from Arrakis, which is a nice change visually. I will say that while I was watching the film, there was a scene when I think Zendaya was cooking something while talking to Paul, and I could hear this humming noise going, oh, it's probably the cooking apparatus out in the desert. And then in the next scene, the humming noise kept going, and I realised it was the air conditioning or the projector of the cinema I was in. And once I heard that, I couldn't get rid of it. It's like just going on all the way through the film, and I was a bit annoyed about that. So if I see the film again, I may watch in a different cinema. Anyway, that aside, a friend of mine said that the thing about the arena scene where you meet Fade, it's such a huge arena. We're talking bigger than like the one in Attack of the Clones, much bigger than your average football stadium. It's like a gladiators arena, but the audience would see little tiny specks fighting. If it had been a room, if it had been like the size of an indoor sports hall, I think there would have been a bit more closeness to the crowd and the closeness, obviously we get to see it. The cameraman is down on the ground with everyone else fighting, with Fade and everybody, but it just feels like it's too big an arena, and it could have been done in a smaller room. But it's an epic film, so they have these epic choices, much like Ben-Hur, the Roman chariot race has to be done, or like the if you don't remember Ben-Hur, because you may be much younger than me, and let's face it, everyone is, the pod race from the Phantom Menace. It's a big arena. It has to take place in a big space. I've been chatting for 20 minutes. I'm going to start winding this up. So my thoughts: epic film, satisfying, the satisfying end. Obviously, leaving things open for the third film, which I'm told is underway, at least being written. That's going to be called Dune Messiah. Don't know whether that's going to be 1 or 2 films. Someone else said, another reviewer said that, can Timothée Chalamet bring the gravitas to this character who's evolving into this, this spiritual leader and a fighter and stuff? And yes, he can. I saw him last in Wonka, and I'm thinking, yeah, he's a nice enough young lad. He can sing a little bit, he can dance a little bit. I think, is he really going to pull this off? In the first film, Paul is a bit wet behind the ears and is only just learning his importance in the world. But in this second film, he really grows into it, and he is believable when he's, addressing the masses out of the Fremen, who look up to him as a leader. So that's a great thing. He's very good, and I'm looking forward to the next one. I don't know how long it'll take, but I think this film will make. I think it'll make it very close to $1 billion, because a lot of people are seeing it on IMAX and stuff. I don't know how it's doing at the moment on on the box office, but Rotten Tomatoes, it's something like 96%. So it's getting, across the board, everyone's raving about it. And I'm not saying it's an absolute masterpiece. It's ridiculously good. It's gripping. It's really well shot. Let's say there's a couple of little niggles, like I said earlier on, where a couple of things kind of are a little bit unclear, and there's that bit in the middle, like I said, that seemed to be almost like we'd missed the scene and just skipped forward. But other than that, it's a great film. I'm not hating on it in the slightest. I wish I could make a film like that. Blimey. But do you know what? On balance, I think I prefer Dune 1, because it's a little bit more dynamic and it feels a little bit more sci-fi, where this one is more, guerrilla fighting in the desert. The first one feels a bit more sci-fi. The second one is more about the sort of the machinations, the religious aspect, and the whole, coming of age for Paul. And I think that goes with what I used to like and dislike about the Battlestar Galactica series, the reboot. I liked all the sci-fi stuff. I liked the Cylon stuff, but I didn't like the religious-based stuff, such as was her name Seven, or was it something else? It was the blonde woman, the really nice blonde woman who was invisible to everyone else except for Baltar. That angle of the final five and all these Cylons who were kind of religious enthusiasts, that side of it didn't really do it for me. It may be because I'm not religious in the slightest, but with Dune, I would like to have seen more. I can't say I would like to have seen. If it's not in the book, it's not going to happen. But in the first film, there were more vehicles, more traveling around, more kind of interesting things. They showed Paul learning stuff on hologram discs and stuff. But this second one did what it's supposed to do, which is to set Paul up as the leader of the Fremen, or at least the Muad'Dib, the Kwisatz Haderach, for want of a better weird word. And it's well done. So I can't be asking for more sci-fi stuff if it's just not in the book. Like I say, there are characters in the book that aren't in this film, and there are characters who were in the first film who aren't seen in the second film for whatever reason. And people who've read the books are feeling a little bit shortchanged. But like I say, haven't read the books, so I just judge it from what I see. And although it's a great film, I think I gave it like a 7 out of 10, this film. And I think I gave Dune 1 8 out of 10, which is still pretty good. It's like 70% and 80%, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, everyone who loves this film loves it crazily. And much like when Avatar came out, if you said anything less than a million out of 10, people call you a hater. I'm not hating on it in the slightest. Dune Part 2, I've given it a 7 out of 10. Dune Part 1, 8 out of 10. Still, is it worth a watch? Hell yes. Is it well shot? Yes. Is it exciting? Yes. Is it gripping? Yes. Is it well acted? Yes. It just wasn't as satisfying for me as the first one, but still great. It's like trying to judge Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Now, I love Star Wars the most. I know Empire Strikes Back is a superior film, but I prefer Star Wars because it's the first one, and I think that might be the case with this Dune one. Return of the Jedi, you love it or you hate it, but again, it's part of the original trilogy. So, that's my thing. I hope I didn't spoil too much for you, and obviously I welcome comments and stuff down the bottom, as long as everyone keeps it nice. Anything less than nice and less than polite doesn't get posted up, basically. I moderate the comments. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope my review is reasonably balanced and sort of sensible. So if you liked it, give us a thumbs up, and I may see you very soon for more info on Bloody Students, my film, Off-World, what's happening with that, upcoming conventions, cosplays and stuff coming up, and also the return of Cardiff Jack Sparrow. Savvy. So I will try and find a way to end this